Good evening. Think we need to settle down finally. On behalf of the Bengal Club, I welcome you all to the Tiger Pataudi Memorial Lecture. I think I speak for all our members when I say that it is an incomparable privilege for the Bengal Club to be associated with a lecture that carries the name of the great Mansur Ali Khan Pataudi. Over the last decade and a half, in his memory, we've had the good fortune of listening to some of the stalwarts of the game as part of this lecture series. And this year, we are honored to have one of the greatest to have ever played the game, Lord Ian Botham. And
the Right Honourable Lord Botham, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. On behalf of the ABP Group and the Bengal Club, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to the 12th edition of the Tiger Pataudi Memorial Lecture. Though she is not present with us here this evening, we would also like to thank Sharmila Tagore ma'am for her continued support to this event. The very name of this lecture evokes a particular idea of cricket, not merely as a sport of runs, wickets, and catches, but as a theatre of courage, imagination, wit, and personality. Mansur Ali Khan Pataudi, Tiger to the cricketing world, represented a rare blend of aristocratic grace and sporting rebellion. He was elegant, yet uncompromising, fiercely competitive, yet deeply cultured, a captain who believed cricket should be played boldly, intelligently, and with joy. And perhaps that is why tonight's speaker feels especially appropriate. If Tiger Pataudi represented charisma with steel beneath it, then Ian Botham represented cricket at its most gloriously untamed. There are statistics that define great cricketers, and then there are cricketers who become folklore. Lord Botham emphatically belongs to this second category. The numbers remain extraordinary. More than 5,000 test runs, over 380 test wickets, 14 centuries, 27 five-wicket hauls, 120 catches. One of the greatest all-rounders the game has ever seen. But numbers alone cannot define Ian Botham. Statistics do not capture the electricity he brought into a stadium. They do not explain why crowds leaned forward whenever he had the ball in hand, or why opponents could never entirely relax while he remained on the field. Cricket has produced many great all-rounders, but only a handful transformed matches through sheer force of personality. And perhaps nobody did it with quite the theatrical instinct of Ian Botham. There was always the sense that something could happen, a counter-attack, a spell of violent swing bowling, a stunning catch, a moment of mischief, or occasionally all of them before tea. Botham emerged at a fascinating moment in English cricket. The mid-1970s were years when the game was still carried traces of post-war conservatism. Cricketers were expected to be disciplined, restrained, and almost apologetic about genius. Then arrived this burly all-rounder from Somerset who played with instinct rather than caution, who attacked situations others merely tried to survive, and who possessed that rarest sporting gift, the ability to make spectators believe they were witnessing something unpredictable. There was also about Botham something deeply democratic. Cricket supporters felt he belonged to them. He laughed loudly, celebrated loudly, occasionally got into trouble loudly, but he was authentic. And authenticity, especially in sport, ladies and gentlemen, creates devotion. Tonight, however, we honor not only his brilliance, but the complexity of his journey. because the greatest sporting stories are never linear. In 1980, England handed Botham the captaincy, believing perhaps that a man who could dominate matches might also dominate leadership. But captaincy is a strange burden. It asks instinctive cricketers to become calculating. It asks free spirits to become administrators. The pressures accumulated, his batting suffered, the bowling lost rhythm. By 1981, after a difficult run, Botham resigned midway through an Ashes series which England were trailing in. To many observers, it seemed almost tragic. Commentators wondered whether his best years had already passed. And then came one of the most extraordinary sporting resurrections cricket has ever witnessed. At Headingley in that series, England were following on against Australia, dismissed by bookmakers and commentators alike. One bookmaker even offered 500 to 1 odds against an England victory. Then walked in Ian Botham. What happened next remains etched into cricket's collective memory. He counterattacked with breathtaking audacity, not cautious survival, not careful rebuilding, but pure attack. He made 149 not out at a run ball, an innings that did not merely rescue England, but electrified world cricket. He batted like a man liberated, freed from captaincy, freed from burden, freed perhaps even from fear. And in doing so, he reminded the world that the greatest sporting moments often arrive when instinct defeats anxiety. He didn't stop there. At Edgbaston, Botham demolished Australia with the ball. At Old Trafford, he scored 118 in an innings of unusually cultured brutality, smashing the likes of Lilly and Alderman all over and beyond the park. The 1981 Ashes became not merely a contest, but a one-man uprising. And so the phrase entered cricketing mythology, Botham's Ashes. As Mike Braley, the Cambridge-educated England captain, writes in On Cricket, quote, "The events of 1981 fit in with our national mythology of winning against the odds, of the darkest hour of the Battle of Britain," unquote. A year later, an Indian team led by Sunil Gavaskar toured England for a 3-test series. The third test began at the Oval on July 8th of that year. A day earlier, on 7th of July 1982, the Telegraph began its journey. Ian Botham connections dates back to that time. He became the voice of the paper, reporting on that Oval test match, in which incidentally he notched up his highest test score of 208. Tiger Pataudi, one suspects, would have enjoyed Ian Botham immensely. Tiger himself challenged convention throughout his life, encouraging aggression when Indian cricket was expected merely to survive overseas, backing youth, believing in daring, playing with one eye after a devastating accident, and still transforming India's cricketing identity. In many ways, they belonged to different worlds, yet they shared a common instinct that cricket should be played boldly, that spectators deserve imagination, that courage matters. As the years passed, Botham's influence expanded beyond the boundary. His charity walks for leukemia research raised millions and touched countless lives, a commitment that was deeply personal and profoundly sustained. Ian Botham's story matters precisely because it was not tidy. It contained triumph and turbulence, genius and controversy, failure and resurgence. People remember perfection with admiration, but they remember resilience with affection. And generations continue to remember Ian Botham because he embodied possibility. The possibility that a game can change in a session, that pressure can be transformed into liberation, that instinct, courage, and joy still matter in elite sport. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Lord Botham.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's absolutely magnificent to be back here in Calcutta. It's been about 10 years, far too long. And I have great memories, fond memories. Play at Eden Gardens. There's 2 games going. There's one at Eden Gardens, there's one in Eden Gardens the other side of the wall. You'd have 100,000 people there, and the roar would go up, especially if I just bowled Keppel. But anyway, the roar would go up, and you'd think, great, and then about 4 or 5 seconds later, with the radios, you got another boost. But I loved coming here, always have done. Some good friends, Sarah, and many other players. So it's nice to be back. Indian cricket is the fastest growing, most explosive story in the modern game. From 1953, when India team won their first test in England on English soil, to the IPL, the present day, is a great story. But it has its problems. I remember when India didn't want to play one-day cricket, and he blocked out 50-odd runs in a day and then lost the game. But then he went on to beat the West Indies in 1983, and suddenly India wanted white ball cricket. And then you go and win the T20, and now you control the world in many ways. If that's good is debatable. I think sometimes Test cricket gets overlooked, and believe me, as far as I'm concerned, if we don't have Test cricket, we don't have cricket as I know it. Look at the history books. I haven't seen too much about who won the IPL. You'll know a lot more. But in England, a lot of people in Australia don't know unless they're actually physically involved. To me, if you go down the annals, Test cricket is called Test cricket because it tests all the faculties. And that, for me, is proof of the pudding. It's not a case of going out there and slogging a couple of sixes. You're out there to fight and play. And 5 days tests everything, particularly the physical side of the game. I love playing against India. You had the days that the spinners were always the ones I thought were great in the early days. Bishan Bedi, of course, which we saw earlier. Prasanna, Chandrasekhar, Venkat. But you know the one that really hit me was Sunil Gavaskar. Now, Sunny made 1,200s against the West Indies. No one else has got close to that. A remarkable player. But also, I don't know if you know this, but he has a total fear of dogs. So when he was playing at Somerset with us, we're out there going for a quiet drink at the stadium, and next door was this phone box. In those days, you didn't have mobile phones. So Sonny had to put a few coins into the box. So he went in there, he stands there on the phone. I had my boxer dog with me, and very obedient, I made her sit there and don't move. And Sonny refused to come out of he was in there for about 45 minutes, believe me, and it was a hot day. Yeah, he wasn't overly impressed. But he had a great sense of humour, apart from being just a great cricketer. And playing with him at Somerset for a year or so, you get to know and understand people. And I have nothing but total... for me, he is the total player. He played one-day cricket, eventually. Not very well, but he did play. But no, he was, for me, he was always having a laugh. He enjoyed it. He was incidentally one of my proudest moments. It was my 100th Test wicket, caught a slip. I do remind him of that as well. But no, you look at Tiger. We saw great memories. Privileged to meet him on a couple of occasions and spend some time with him. Do you know, everyone thought I thought he was very relaxed, but when you actually spent time with him, you realised he had a game plan, and that game plan was there, and he was magnificent. I mean, he had all kinds of problems that go against you. A lot of people would have given up, but not him. And he went on, I think, probably arguably the best captain he's had. they called him, Tiger, they called him a wonderful man called Frank, where are we? Frank Keating, once called Tiger, after your terrible accident and the loss of your eye, when did you think you had a chance of beating England? He just, a cheeky smile, and he just said, no problem. And that was the way he was. He's a great man. A lot of players that you play with, you have long, long memories. Great opportunity of playing some of the best players in the world. My first captain for England was Tony Greig. He is the man that said, we're going to beat the West Indies, we'll smother their flair, and get hold of Viv Richards, keep him tight, he won't score runs. Well, he got him out for 291. Well done, Tony. And the quick bowlers he wrote off totally, and half of our team ended up in hospital, which was not healthy and not good for us. One of the great things that you get when you play for your country is you get the chance to see the cultures of many countries. And here is, I think it's amazing. My wife is not very happy because she wanted to come out, but she couldn't because she had too much to do. Basically stuff for me, which was good. But I think that when you come to countries, and I think you touched on it, sir, just now, when people come, why do you not go out and absorb what's out there? Get to meet the people. You know, the Red Fort. You know, marvellous piece of, it's just the history of that place. What do they do nowadays? They sit in their bedroom, and another guy over that bedroom, and they play these games. And that's what they think's all touring about. Ridiculous. Get out there. Go and see how other people do it. And you will. You'll find that we fought against apartheid, which is, to me, was a tough area for a lot of players in different parts of the world. And if you think of the players that we missed out on, really, apart from we had likes of Tony Greig. I was lucky enough to play with Viv Richards. Viv and I actually made our first-class debut together against Lancashire in 1974, a long time ago. But he was sent over by the West Indian Cricket Board, he and Andy Roberts, to go to Surrey. Alf Gover was meant to be the guru of coaching. And at the end of 10 days, his analysis was, Viv Richards can only hit the ball on the onside, and Andy Roberts has got no control, but he's got some pace. Well, Hampshire were delighted with that because they got Andy Roberts, and we were delighted we got Viv Richards. The first time I played with him, we played an under-25 game. I'd heard about everything he was doing in North Somerset, and I was playing pretty well down the south of Somerset. We both got picked to play the first time we were going to meet physically. And I walked, it was up at Lansdowne in Bath, cricket ground, walked into the dressing room, and he was sat there, Viv, the great man, this cricket case. I was a second in. We've never ever done that before. Viv is usually the last by about half an hour to arrive at the ground. But we wanted to meet up with each other. And we went out there. He's Ian, you must be Ian. I said, yeah, and you must be Viv. That was the last times we ever used our Christian names. It was Smokey and Beefy. And went out there, sat down, waiting for him to go out. We were playing in Glamorgan under 25. Very first ball, off stump, out the ground. I went in a few wickets later, got a few runs, 60 or 70, something like that. And Viv, we go out the field. I went for 38 or 4 overs, which is not what the captain wanted. And Viv walked up and said, Cappy, I can bowl. And to this day, I don't really know what he did bowl, because it was neither seam or non-spinning off-spin, but he got 6 for 38. So he walked into the dressing room at the end of the game, and he's there, and we're having a cold beer each, and he gets up with the rest of the boys there, and he goes, hey, Beefy man, you get the runs, I'll take the wickets. It didn't quite work out that way, but he was probably arguably the best modern player that I've seen. And you've got players like Sunil, you've got Sachin, you've got Virat, all great players. But for me, Viv would be right up there. We also had another guy with South African blood in him, Alan Lamb. His father taught our aircraft, Spitfire and Hurricane pilots. He came over and taught them how to fly during the Second World War. He got badly burnt, and Lammy stayed over, and they made him, although his father did all that and made the sacrifice, he had to do 4 years to qualify. But when he did, what a great player. You know, small, similar height to Sunil. They argue, and well, of course, then there's Vichy. You know, you're going down another step then. But no, you had Alan Lamb, then you had Robin Smith, who sadly passed away a couple of months ago, way too young. And that's something that's happening now. You know, when you get there and you think, oh, Rod Marsh just died, 70. My wife and my daughter rang me and said, on the social media, they've just said that Warnie's died. And I said, don't be ridiculous. I said, they're mixing it up with Rod. I went on the phone, made a couple of phone calls. At 52 years of age, he died. And it's a little bit sad, very, very sad, because what he did when he played cricket was he emptied bars, unlike a lot of other players, filled the bars. But he was box office, a great guy, and misunderstood, particularly in Australia. He would ring up on a day off in Brighton, which is a suburb of Melbourne. He'd ring up one of the schools, and he'd go up there on one condition: no press. And he'd go up there and he'd spend a couple of hours with the team, and he would go through all sorts of routines with them. Never ever did it reach the papers, and he didn't want it that way. You know, he was quite remarkable. We played golf a lot together, and the Dunhill, which is a great tournament, usually in early October, and you play with the pros. They're playing for $5 million. We're playing for the fun of it. He's never made the cut. Now, the cut in those tournaments, they have to be the 20 amateurs out of 180 that go through to play on the final day with their pros. He's never made it, Warnie. Been one to never give in. On the final, sadly, the last Dunhill that he played, he came. They were scraped in 19th, and on the Saturday night there's a big gala, and everyone goes along to the gala, and you have the bands and playing and what have you. And when it gets to about 11 o'clock, if you're going to be playing the next day, you want to go and get some sleep. Well, from the moment when Warnie arrived at the marquee, he went up to this young lad who was serving our table, and he said, here's 50 quid. Every 8 minutes, I want a vodka Red Bull. I looked at him and I said, what's 8 minutes? He says, my lucky number, dice. I said, oh, right, okay. Anyway, at 4 a.m., he was escorted by security to his room. As he's starting at 19th, he is teeing off at 10 minutes past 8 in the morning. He's playing with Ryan Fox, a very, very good professional, and get out there, goes to put the tee in, and falls over. So Ryan Fox looked at that and thought, oh dear, we're in trouble. But after 6 holes, Warnie was 2 under par gross. So going down the fairway, and his partner's thinking, oh, what's going on here? And then he sort of watched him the next hole, and he said, he's sobering up. So he got his caddy and sent him to a bar over there and said, bring me a load of vodka Red Bull and give it to Warnie. Warnie that evening, he didn't realise, but they actually came joint first. They shot 57, I think, between the two of them. And we're on the plane going back, and he said to me, Beefy, what happened today? He had no idea what he'd just done. But an amazing friend and an amazing person. When I was in trouble, he'd be the first to ring, and likewise I'd do the same for him. Wouldn't even consider it. But you look at the other South African players, and I was looking through this the other evening when I was sorting this out, and Pollock, Richards, Barry, Callis, who missed out, Procky, Rice, Vince, and Lammy, who's the one that escaped. Mike Proctor, of course, played for Gloucester, but played very little international cricket. But one of the things that I enjoyed the most, and one of the things I'm most proud of, we were in Monaco, and it was the Laureate Sports for Good Foundation. It was their inaugural year. And we're on stage, and there's Viv and myself there, and there's 40 of the great Emerson Fittipaldi, rugby players, footballers, you name it, they're all there. At the end of Mr. Mandela came onto the stage, said the final words to wish everyone well. The curtain came down. I'm stood there talking to Viv, and Mr. Mandela puts his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're my hero." And I said, "What?" I had a look round. "Are you talking to me, sir?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I was incarcerated for 27 years. And I caught up with things, and I used to see the papers, and I saw how many times you turned down the gold of South Africa and refused to go on the rebel tours." He said, "I don't forget things like that." Then on a plane, a few weeks later, I'm in Johannesburg, my wife flies out. She sat there, noticed this lady walking in, Mr. Mandela's private nurse. She's there, and she said, "Hello, Kath." And he's on board. He's having a little bit of a rest at the moment. I'll tell him you're here. So, about half an hour later, knocks on the wagon door, on the cabin door, goes in, said, "Fancy a cup of tea, Kath?" Sat down, and had about half an hour of conversation. And then he gets up, get ready to land, and as he turned to walk away, he said, "Oh, by the way," he said, "I'm very, very fond of your husband, but he can a bit naughty at times, can't he?" Yeah. You know, everyone talks about 81, and 81 changed my life. When you're offered the captaincy at the age of 24, it's the highest accolade you can get for your country, and you don't say no. I should have said no, but you don't, because I was probably 2 years before I could have really done the job properly. So we play Australia. First test we lose. I go up to the dressing room. Second test, Lords. It's probably the most boring wicket. You play this IPL on those because it didn't do anything. It was flat and just went through and whack. And we were there. We lost the toss. We lost the toss, and Australia were 400 and odd first innings. We then went out to bat. We didn't do very well. We, in fact, were awful. We were all out for 170 on a reasonably good wicket. And it came in, the Australian team come in, knock on the door, and said very simply, "Follow on, boys." It's the last time that Australia ever enforced the follow on with England. We're not going so well. 70 for 6. Then Graham Dilley came out, and to show you, everyone has a moment in sport. He came out, he said, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "I want you to hit the ball. I want you to hit as hard as you can." The wicket was starting to break up a little bit, and it was deviating here, there, and everywhere. And I said, "If you just block it, you're going to get out. So when you get out there, smack it." He did. He got 63. I'll never forget it. And it was if you put all his test score runs together, 63 beat it comfortably. But we hung around, we got the runs. 130, you think, well, that's all over. Well, 50 for 2, it was all over. But then Bob Willis said, "Captain, can I come down at Leeds? There used to be a bit of a slope there. I'll come down that." He did. 8 for 43. We win. We go up to the dressing room. We had this young lad up there from South Africa as a runner by the name of Ricky Roberts. And we go up there, and I thought, hang on, there's no champagne here. All the champagne was in the Australian bath on ice, because they presumed they were going to win. We thought they were going to win, to be absolutely honest. And I said to Ricky, I said, listen, Ricky, do me a favour. Just go across the corridor, 5 yards, knock on the door, be polite, and just say, could the England team have a couple of bottles of champagne? Well, he did that, but then he added, because you won't be needing it. He came through our dressing room door, horizontal, had a bottle in each hand. To his credit, he didn't spill a drop. Ricky Roberts, I don't know if that name means anyone here, golfer? Any golfers? Well, Ricky Roberts went on to be Ernie Els's caddy to all his major wins. And that we put that down to that week with us in that Headingley dressing room. But yeah, I mean, you people do wonderful things. My biggest moments, we talk about Mumbai, mentioned it. I have to say, I think I got about 8 hours sleep in the week because we just come off a trip to Australia. We're all pumped up. And yeah, Jubilee Test, very nice, very good. But Ashes 77, 85, these are all great memories. But we talk about players, we talk about cricket, we've talked about a lot of things that happen in cricket, but for me, we really do need to concentrate on that red ball. And interestingly now, the crowds in England are getting bigger and better, selling out. I noticed that the Indian crowds for tests are coming back, maybe not as quickly as everywhere else, Australia, New Zealand, but the countries, the worst one is South Africa at the moment with the West Indies, which is something we need to correct. How we do that, I don't know. But I think the IPL is something that we need to consider. And also, we've got this, in the whole of August, there's one game of red ball cricket in the UK. It is all to the 100. They paid $970 million for 8 teams. And that's the problem we've got, that kind of investment. The people that invest that kind of money want it their way, so to speak. And I understand that, as long as the money is used properly, which it doesn't always happen. The women's cricket, you've got some great girls over here playing. What annoys me is the facilities for the girls don't exist. Girls in England were having to get changed in the back of a car to play cricket. That's wrong. So hopefully some of that money will go to the grassroots and to helping, without doubt, helping the younger players to play. I love it when Virat says winning test matches for India means more to him than anything else in the game. And that, for me, sums it up. Including winning the IPL is fine. It's good, makes a few quid, but he wants to go down as a test player and one of the finest. And for me, he certainly is. He's got a lot about him. But you meet a lot of people when you're playing cricket, and the ones I enjoy the most beating is Australia. And I've been commentating in Australia now on Triple M, watched 70,000 people fill that ground, the MCG, or nearly filled it, on the 5th day when they're playing Australia. And that's what we want. That's how cricket should be, the atmosphere. But one of the problems with playing in Australia, you've got to mix with people like Merv Hughes. Now, Merv Hughes and I work on this radio station, Triple M. If you can imagine Triple M now. The radio station, Merv Hughes, Tubby Taylor, Greg Blewett, Brad Haddon, Matt Johnson. I mean, just go through the list of players. And I am the only Englishman sat there amongst this commentating. Well, 2 Ashes ago, the very first ball of the series, England lost a wicket. I'm in the commentary, but I've got Ponting and Hayden. And as it's hit the stumps, I've gone, oh, Mark, so-and-so God. And I've gone like that. And then Ricky Ponting had that going up at the end of every over, me just bucking down. Honestly, it was embarrassingly tough. But then I thought, well, things will be good this last Test series. I thought we're in with a real chance. Well, we would have been if they'd done a little bit of preparation. Their idea of preparation was they played 3 one-day games in New Zealand. They came to Perth. They played that thing at Lilac Hill or whatever it's called. And they went there, 3-day game against England A, who were over there. And that was their preparation. And because it got hot on the 3rd day, they only played 2.5 days. Well, you're in Perth, Western Australia. It does get hot. And they said, this is the way we play. Well, okay. And after the second test, we're 2-0 down. Some reason the team decided to go to Noosa for 5 days, which, can you imagine how that went down with the thousands of people who paid, the tourists who went over? They all go there, to watch England. They save money and save it for a year and come out for the series. How disappointing when you've got 2 games that are over in 2 days. And England were appalling. There's no other word for it. They simply weren't prepared. They were allowed to do pretty much as they want. So what do England do? We don't do anything. We leave everyone, this coaching staff, etc. They're still there. For me, the person that should go is the one at the top, which is Rob Keys, and he's the one that sanctioned everything that happened on that tour. So that is a major problem, a major problem. But going back to being in the commentary box, Merv's been on to me for quite a while. He said, come on. He said, we're going to go up to the Northern Territories and we're going to do some fishing. I thought, okay, sounds good. He said, I've got a barramundi which is 94 centimetres. He said, that's big. You can't beat that one, Beefy. Anyway, for 4 days, I didn't. And on the 5th day, we're out there, and last half hour, 40 minutes before we had to go back to the mothership, because the mothership was going to pull the tenders back to Darwin, which is a 3-day haul. And we were flying out. So half an hour, 40 minutes ago, I get into this fish, and it's a big fish. And Merv's there, and he said, I don't think it's as big as mine, Beef. I said, well, we'll find out in a minute. Anyway, we got it out, 95 centimetres. Yes. Yes. Anyway, we get back on the boat. I'm still thinking about what beer I'm going to have to celebrate. And I'm going up there, but they'd already tied the tender boats off down the side. So I go up there to have a beer with the boys, and I trip over the rope, and I go over the back, and I did 2 ribs in the side, and I'm in the water. And I'm not on my own. There were 2 bull sharks we knew up at the front of the boat. Luckily they were mating, thank goodness. Well done, Laddo, to save me. And then we had a 6-metre croc that lived about 30 yards down from where we were moored. So I've gone over, I'm in the water, and I went under, but luckily the chef was there. And it's got a 15, k's, no, it'd be about 25 k's, 15 miles an hour current, 9-metre tide. If he hadn't got hold of my shirt, I was gone. Because they pulled me out, the old big 6-metre croc was just having a look to see where I was. And I was very pleased to be out of that water. Got out, went, they didn't quite know, a bit disorientated, and then Merv comes out of the galley, 2 beers. I thought, that's nice, a beer for me, I need one. He went, bump, bump. I said, well, that's not very nice. He said, mate, I've just got you out. I said, Merv, you never got me out. I'll leave that one to sink in. Sorry. What I do want to tell you about was mentioned here a little bit early, is as a family, we're very, very proud of the work we've achieved as a family for leukemia research. And what happened was, in 1977, I stepped on a ball, broke 2 bones in my foot, and in those days, you didn't stay with England, you went back to your mother county. So, I get back to Taunton, club doctor's waiting for me at the hospital, and I walked down there to him. He said, come on, we've got to go through to the physio department. They've had the x-rays, and they've been looking at the x-rays, and I think they've got it all sorted out. I said, okay, great. So we're going through the children's ward, and 4 lads, you can see kids when they're obviously ill, there's tubes sticking out of them, their legs in the air, whatever, plasters, etc., big plaster casts. And I'm walking through in the little round table, and on that round table, there were 4 lads playing one of those board games. So I said to the doc, I said, David, tell me, these guys visiting? He said, no, these guys are not visiting. They are seriously ill. You're here for the next 8 to 10 weeks every day, having treatment. He said, I don't think any of those 4 boys will still be alive. I said, you're kidding me, you're joking, why? He said, they have leukemia. 1977, I had no idea what leukemia was, never heard of it. But true enough, all 4 of those boys passed away. And what they did when the boys were coming to the end of their lives, which is horrendous in itself, they had a big cake done, and all the kids in the ward would join in, and they were on painkillers, seriously bad painkillers, and tough ones, and they don't know if it's their birthday, Christmas, Easter, whatever, it didn't matter. At the end of the day, it was a party. So I'm walking out with a doc, and I said, Dave, I said, is there anything I can do? I've just watched 4 kids die. Is there anything we can do to help? And he said, well, you've seen that we have the parties. We don't get any funding for that. So, well, we could do with a bit of help there, I suppose. So I said, okay, Kath and I will fund the parties, which we did until 1984, when I decided it was negative for me. I'm not a negative person. And negative that we just pay for a party when it's gone. I said, I want to do something positive. A couple of days later, I'm going down to London on the train. Someone had left a colour magazine supplement on the seat. I picked it up, glancing through it, and I got to this on about page 8, a lovely story about this eccentric old lady called Dr. Barbara Watson. She lived on the south coast. She would get on a train at Torquay, go all the way up to John O'Groats, and then she spent 3 to 4 months meandering back. So I thought, okay, that sounds good. I'm going to do a sponsored walk. Announced this to my wife, who thought I was going to do something sensible, like London to Brighton. I said, no. Got the leukemia people there. I'm going to do the walk, but it's going to be from John O'Groats to Land's End. My geography wasn't too good in those days, I hasten to add. 400 miles from John O'Groats to the border, then another 600 miles down to Land's End. So off we go. No idea what we're doing. No one's ever taken this on. No one's ever tried to do it. We get going. You learn very quickly there's certain things that are essential. Vaseline being one of them. Chafing is not good. And you have to have a bath in the evening. You couldn't get in the bath. You had to sit in the bath for about 2 or 3 minutes with your feet out of the water to keep so the skin wouldn't soften. Then you had it cleaned with white spirit. And if you had any little nicks, you soon knew about it as you're crawling up the wall. But that's how it was. It was tough. And it's 1,000 miles. We did it in 33 days. I'll let you work out the maths on that. So we get down there. We're halfway down. And I discovered a little bit of help. And that little bit of help was a bottle of orangeade, a litre bottle. And as we're going down, I remember we were in Worcestershire area, and we're going along, And there's two lovely old ladies there putting some money in the buckets. We had buckets because there was no PayPal in those days. So you had to literally have a mobile bank to take it every evening, the money that we collected. So these two old ladies are there putting the money in. And she said, "Ooh, look at that, isn't that nice? She's got some orangeade." What she didn't know was that litre was 2/3 tequila. And we discovered that a good swig of that in the last couple of miles got you home. It got you over the line because it killed everything from the neck down, pain-wise. So that became very popular, I hasten to add. But we then continued down the collectors. We had two lots of collectors. One, the police were brilliant. So you have them, one lot this side, they'd stop them, and this lot would be let through. So the ones that had been stopped, the team went out. We had two lots of 12, all volunteers, and they put balaclavas on, I think, and then robbed every car that they could get to. We collected over £1 million just through those buckets in those 33 days. We then got to the end of that walk. We built a research centre outside of Glasgow with the money from that. We've done 18 walks now, and I won't be doing any more. But we covered 10,500 miles, which is London to Sydney. I suggest you fly. But that's how it all started. Family affair. We've managed to collect. I'll tell you what kept us really going was the fact that when we left John O'Groats, there was a 20% chance of survival for kids with the most common form of leukemia. We were able to announce, just after the second COVID, we were able to announce that that's now 94% chance of survival. And, I mean, it was hard work, but you know, it's the most satisfying thing I've done, and the reason I could do it was of what I achieved on the cricket field. So it gave me the springboard to do something like this, and the people got behind it, the country. So it was quite remarkable. We've had plenty of success with the other walks, and we've continued to invest into research, and we've collected, I don't really, it's 70, north of 70 million pounds for the charity. So it's been a family effort. We also did walks over the Alps. We did one over the Alps, and we followed Hannibal's route as much as we could, but we have these elephants. Now, when you've got elephants, you can't tell them to stop and sit. They don't do that, not like your average Labrador. So once they're going along, and they also arrived, I have to say, in these air-conditioned massive lorries, and they used to come out, roam about, walk the first 100 yards, no more. Then they go back to the field. They'd graze and roll around in that under the Alps, and then we would pick them up in the evening when we got to the end of the walk, and they'd do the last couple of 100 yards into the villages. Problem is that I've forgotten how well trained these elephants were. So they would walk directly behind me, Indian file. And on occasion, I remember we went to, it actually was the village of Hannibal, and we went through there, and you try stopping 4 elephants when they have veg this side, they have fruit this side, and they just scooped it all up as we're going through. Can't stop them. Walked up, I went into the parlour to meet the Lord Mayor and thank him for everything. Walked up there, and of course I didn't stop the elephants, and so they actually followed me into the Mayor's parlour. And they had this big array of glasses of wine, local wine, and all kinds of snacks and things on the table, and they hoovered the whole lot before anyone could get close to it. We had one of them went down with an illness, like a heavy cold, and we had one of the leading vets in the UK with us for this to make sure there was nothing wrong with the elephants. We had to retire one, but that was for safe, to be safe. But if they had a cold, you used to get this bloody great 2-gallon bottle of brandy, and they just tip it down their neck. And the elephant was great, loved it. It's never been quite so friendly as it was on that roll. But these are the things that I think, for me, cricket was great. But the stuff it's done for me since, I have to go to Australia and get abuse every winter from there. But traveling the world, meeting people, is special. And I think it's something that you should embrace. For me, I don't think there's any better sport in the world. I love it. It brings people together and friendships forever. Sunil Gavaskar and myself, as I said at the start of the lecture, he is one of the great, great people of this planet. And he keeps on measuring himself against Vichy, but he's still ahead. He's all right. But look, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure to come here. I would like to say that there's many places you go to, and you're lucky enough to travel and see the world. But I love the culture and the way of India. I've been 10 years without able to come back. But sadly for you all, I intend to come back quite a lot more, and which will be good. Not just Calcutta, I want to go, Kolkata. No, I get very confused with all this stuff. But Calcutta, anyway, that's what it was, but that was Bombay, Mumbai, Chennai. Anyway, I love it going to all these places, and one of my favorite places, which you'll find hard to believe, is Nagpur. And why would that be? Because, absolutely, sir, it's the elephants, and I went up there, and my wife and I, we stayed there for 4 nights, and we went, and this wonderful elephant got him, sat on him, on the basket thing they have on the side, and we went up, and we ended up with a mother and 3 cubs. And we spent 3 days with them. And that was one of the most mind-blowing experiences of my life. When she came down the hill, with the slack stones and everything down there, she goes on all 4s. And she goes down like that, and we're sitting there. I mean, they're amazing creatures. And to spend that much time, I've never seen a chapati the size they had when each one gets one. It'd be about half of the stage, and they have to get through it. That's their reward. But these are the things that I've missed over the years. And I intend to put that right before I become incapable. And to look up a lot of old friends. But for me, Nagpur, I got, one of those bloody, I hate snakes. I hate them, absolutely hate them. This cobra had a good look at me, and I was gone. Yeah. The world's fastest man wouldn't have caught up with me. But no, these are all great things, and you have a wonderful country, and I thank you very much for always engaging with me. And what can I say? But see you soon. Bye for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was truly from the heart. Don't you think we should have a louder noise? All the hands together. And this is what I say, direct dil se. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call someone really iconic. A superstar in his own right. A fascinating personality. Has the most amazing expressions on screen. And we are so proud to have him here. Absolutely at the Tiger Pataudi Memorial Lecture, the 12th. And ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the dynamic, iconic Saif Ali Khan, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, on this occasion, we'd like him to say a couple of words to the amazing audience. Saif, the mic is yours.
Well, always a hard act to follow. I think cricketers from past eras also have been so charming. I don't know what it is, something about the game, something about the character, the stories they tell, the way they the way they tell a story. Many people here knew Mansur Ali Khan Pataudi as, or some people knew him perhaps as Tiger, a dashing and courageous batsman, one of the world's best fielders, and one of India's great captains who changed the way we played cricket. I knew him respectfully as Abba, a man of very few words who somehow said everything to us as a family that mattered. Sometimes you find superstars a little different at home, but he commanded as much respect in his house as he did on the field, never raised his voice, and was always there for us. Now, growing up, cricket was everywhere in our home. The gardeners, the drivers, people who worked for us, family, everybody played. Cricket was a great equalizer and taught us to respect people from a very early age. And my father lost his eye, just he was maturing, just, as I don't know if all of you know this, I'm sure. I don't want to go on because I can go on about many aspects about his cricket, but he lost his eye when he was on the cusp of achieving something really, really great. It is one of the biggest disasters in sporting history and one of the greatest comebacks. There was a famous batsman, a Yorkshire batsman, who doesn't believe he lost his eye, actually. He said, I've heard stories, but it can't be true, because there was another Yorkshire batsman, Mr. Colin Milburn, who lost his eye, but he was a little older than Tiger. He was 30, but he couldn't play again, because it's not possible at that level. So he had scored 300s in a row for Oxford. He was 92 runs short of breaking a record for the highest amount of runs at Oxford, set ever, by his own father. 92 more runs, a few more matches to go, and then this terrible car accident. He came home. The doctor, he didn't know he had lost an eye, actually. He thought it was a shoulder accident. And the doctors operated, and they said, you've also got this piece of glass in your eye, and you lose 99% vision. At one point, they said, listen, if you wear a contact lens, you'll get 90% vision back, but it'll take a long time to adjust. So he came home from university, and he was in Delhi, and they asked him to play a match against a visiting English team. So he wore this lens, and he found that he was seeing fine, but there was a slight problem. He was seeing two balls a few inches apart, very disturbingly so. So he played the one on the left and missed it, and then obviously played the one on the right and found that to be true, and like this, got to about 35 before lunch. At which point he took off the lens and then covered his eye with the hat and got 70 and top scored, and was chosen to play for India. So he said he had to change his game. He had to curb his natural inclination to drive, because he'd be yorked and would be beaten by this half-volley york, often beaten by the yorker, and found he couldn't hook one of his favorite shots because he couldn't follow the ball around. So he said, if it's on the stumps, I'll just play straight, won't lift my bat off the ground for the first 20 minutes. And if it's outside the off stump or outside the leg stump, I'll hit it hard. This was the approach at the beginning. So the first match, he got some 16. He was batting late. Second match, a 50. Nothing conclusive as so far, but played the third match and then got a big 100 against Australia, I believe, and his place was secure. After that, there were a few more low scores, and somebody in the administration suggested an eye test. So he said, no, I can't do that. Either you pick me or you don't pick me. Because he realized that if he had done the eye test, they would have said, look, you can't see at all. Which was amazing. But he never talked about this as a handicap. I never heard him describe this as an adversity ever. I mean, if people would talk about what your average might have been, he didn't encourage that kind of conversation. To him, it was simply a fact, something to adjust to, something to work harder around. And I think that's what defined him most. Not brilliance only, but composure. And he believed leadership was not about commanding attention, but about earning trust by being open and above all fair. He believed in belief and instilling self-belief in Indian players who had never before been told they could perhaps dominate world cricket. At a time when Indian teams were expected merely to participate, he insisted they compete to win. And that massive change of mindset, I think, was one of his great contributions. Now, at home, he rarely spoke about achievements. He rarely spoke about anything. My mother would be exasperated at dinners and get-togethers because people who knew less than him would sometimes give their take and their opinion on matters, and she would nudge him and say, "Go on, Tiger, tell him because you were there and you know." And he just wouldn't say anything. He'd say, "Well, if you want to know, you must ask me. And if you don't ask me, presumably you're not interested in my opinion." So he had a very, very different brand of confidence, and it was great to grow up and have that as a role model. And as I grow a little older, I realized that remembering the past and honoring past heroes has become more and more important. And Tiger Pataudi was my hero, and I can go on about him all night. But this lecture is not only about remembering a great cricketer, it's about remembering an idea. And that idea is that sport has the power to shape character, to bridge worlds, and to teach resilience without bitterness. And for our family, seeing his name continue to inspire conversations about leadership, courage, and excellence is deeply moving, because legacy is not trophies. Legacy is influence. It lives in how captains lead today and how young players believe in themselves, and in how sport continues to unite us in ways very few things can. And if my father was here this evening, he would probably be slightly embarrassed by all this attention. And as I said, very concerned about what I'm going to say next. And also quietly pleased that the conversation remains about cricket, ideas, and the future. And so, on behalf of our family, I thank you. I thank the Telegraph for remembering him not as a figure from the past, but as a continuing presence in the spirit of the game. Thank you for keeping the Tiger alive and where he belongs the most, amongst lovers of sports. And thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you so much. I want you to be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can do better also for Saif. Put your hands together and let's give the Calcutta applause. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to call on the president of the Bengal Club, Partho Ranjan Das, for the vote of thanks. But I must inform all of y'all, we are going to be having a felicitation ceremony after that, so I want everybody to kindly be seated. Ab bahut kuch baki hai, so stay put in your seats. Thank you so much. Sir.
Good evening. I'm sure you have enjoyed this wonderful, wonderful Tiger Pataudi Memorial Lecture. But this was made possible by contributions from many of our sponsors, starting with the Bhawanipur Global Campus, Eden Realty, and our hospitality partner, JW Marriott, freshness partner, Signature Finest Silver, TV news partner, ABP Anando, radio partner, 91.9 Friends FM, and digital partners, the Telegraph Online and T2 Online. I would request all of you to stay back for a while. And before I finish, I'm going to ask Saif something. Many people here are not aware of the cerebral qualities of Tiger Pataudi. I've heard that he was a very keen and a brilliant bridge player. He was? You want to say something about it?
Yeah, I mean, he was a very keen bridge player, but my aunt, my mother's sister who lived in Calcutta, played for India. And they played bridge, and he tried to rope me into it sometimes when I was very young. He said, we need a fourth, so could you learn? But they played for 9 hours at a stretch,
Yes,
and I would have preferred to run around with some younger people doing something a bit more silly. So I never quite, but it's such a great game. But he loved it, yes, very much. Very much.
Anyway, thank you. Over to you, Jimmy.
Thank you so much, sir, for the word of thanks. And ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the felicitations. And I would like to call on behalf of the Bhawanipur Global Campus, Mr. Dilip Shah, the Rector and Dean, Bhawanipur Campus, kindly come on stage and felicitate Lord Botham. Mr. Shah, I would request you to stay on stage at the side, please. Thank you so much. And now I would like to call on Kumar Shottaki, Joint Managing Director of Eden Reality, to kindly felicitate Saif Ali Khan ji. Thank you so much, sir. And now I'd like Dilip ji and Satyaki ji to kindly join us on stage, please, for a photo session. Just stand beside them. Please come on either side. Any pose, yes. Saif, you've got that dynamic look, truly. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Please have a seat. Saif and Lord, please have a seat, Mr. Botham. Thank you, Mr. Shah. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Thank you so much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to call Devdan Mitra, editor, The Telegraph, to felicitate Lord Ian Botham and Saif Ali Khan, please. And this is going to be something special. And we'll soon see it also on screen when we are giving it to them. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see this handmade sketch specially being presented to Lord Botham. It's been hand created and specially done for this occasion. You can see it on screen, ladies and gentlemen. And this is a unique, I would say, a booklet created with all the articles Lord Botham wrote in 1980s for the Telegraph. Well, this is truly, truly amazing, ladies and gentlemen. Very spontaneous. The QR code, ladies and gentlemen, you can zoom in your cameras and read all the articles on this booklet. If you do it right now, it's there for about 10 seconds. And now we have something very, very special again coming up. And Devdan Mitra will do the honors again. And of course, we have a beautiful, yes, you guessed right, a sketch being given to Saif. And in a oh wow, you can actually see it on screen, the sketch which has been done and given to Saif. And of course, a very, very traditional outfit, all with love from the Telegraph. And we have the Bengal Club President Partharanjan Das giving a token of thanks to Lord Ian Botham and Saif with lots and lots of love from Bengal Club. And now, on behalf of Bengal Club, to Saif. Just stand. We'd like a small little photograph taken, so if you can stand together, please, sir. Thank you so much. Now you can comfortably take your seats. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, with that we come to an end of a splendid 12th edition of the Tiger Pataudi Memorial Lecture 2026, a joint initiative by the Bengal Club and the Telegraph. Presented by the Bhawanipur Global Campus, powered by Eden Reality, hospitality partner JW Marriott, freshness partner Signature Finest Silver Elaichi, TV news partner ABP Anando, radio partner 91.9 Friends FM, and digital partners the Telegraph Online and T2 Online. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again. You all have been an amazing audience, and it was such a pleasure having all of you all. Take care, good night, and have a pleasant week ahead. God bless.